Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a horror comedy film, ZOMBIEPURA. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with the shot of a fat soldier named Fatty trying to poop out his greasy turd in the middle of the jungle. After a long battle, he finally emerges victorious. But then he hears an odd sound coming from the bushes. Fatty doesn't like this because he thinks it's some kind of joke. Suddenly, he's dragged to the ground by a zombie hand from below, and then he notices a zombie soldier. Fatty lets out a chicken scream before he's mauled to death by the zombie. Now we move to an army base nearby, which has the motto, "Leave no man behind." All the soldiers participate in a flag-hoisting ceremony in the morning. However, a lazy soldier named Lazy is busy playing a mobile game while his buddy, Tarzan, asks him to behave himself. Lazy wants to finish the game, but the game server crashes down. Now Commander Lee shows up and scolds the soldiers for being disrespectful during the flag ceremony. Lazy is called out for not respecting his rifle, which is also termed as his wife. Lazy reasons that he's a non-combat clerk, but Lee scolds him for being lousy. He asks Lazy and Tarzan to show their ID tags, but they don't seem to have them. Lee says that the ID tags are necessary to identify soldiers if they are killed in war. Lazy says there's no need to worry about war because their country is safe. He sneaks his hand to get back his cell phone, but Lee catches Lazy in his sneaky act and punishes him by making him do chin-ups. Lazy is unable to do even one chin-up, so Lee taunts him by saying his mother can do better. Lazy tells Lee that his dad is here, and then Lee is scolded by his dad for being a useless son. Lazy and Tarzan take this chance to run away from the scene. They talk about taking medical leave so that they can chill at the canteen, where there are also some pretty girls. Hoping to score some new girlfriends, the two make their way to the infirmary, but realize that they need to hide their weapons because they won't be allowed inside with them. After they camouflage their guns in the grass, they enter the army infirmary, where there are plenty of soldiers suffering due to sickness. This makes them a little worried, so they go to the infirmary soldiers, hoping to skip the queue. When asked about their illnesses, Lazy says he had to do chin-ups, and Tarzan says he has depression. This doesn't work, as a bully soldier tells them that they need to wait in line. Bully shows a photo of his wife and daughter to Tarzan, and he says Bully is a lucky man, but gets teased for it. Now, a lady nurse walks in and assesses Lazy for any sickness. She tells Lazy that he isn't sick, so he should drop by to have some drinks with her at the canteen later. Lazy accidentally calls her old, so she goes on to say that she's won many beauty contests. Suddenly, the nurse's daughter, Babe, makes a rather sultry appearance to flex her curvy muscles. As a result, all the boys gaze upon her with dirty eyes. Babe puts a lot of mosquito repellent on her body rather than anti-hormone spray, but her mother warns her because it's harmful. They have an argument over Babe being single, but Babe thinks that all the men over here are creepy uncles. She runs into Lazy and Tarzan and asks them what they want, except her hormones. Lazy acts fast and steals her mosquito repellent so that he can use it on his own eyes in order to get his medical leave approved. Lazy gets blinded when he puts on the repellent, and then he's caught by Lee, who takes him to the doctor. However, doctor allows Lazy to take medical leave because his current condition can lead to the paralysis of his whole body. Lee is frustrated by this result, but is told to calm down. Lee jokes about an infection spreading around the military base, known as the CK virus, or confirmed kidding virus. Doctor doesn't care about such jokes, and then he is alerted about a new patient. It turns out to be Fatty, who was assaulted in the middle of his pooping season. Doctor spots a medic and asks him to perform some CPR on Fatty, but he's a trainee and forgets what he has to do. Doctor tells the medic to give Fatty mouth-to-mouth, and he does so reluctantly. However, Fatty turns into a zombie, but is still fat. He then gives the medic a zombie massage using his teeth. Everyone panics as Zombie Fatty starts biting and infecting all the soldiers in the infirmary. The medic also turns into a zombie and gets up next to Lazy, but doesn't attack him for some reason. Zombie medic shifts his attention to Tarzan, and then Lazy is knocked down and struggles to get his glasses back on. Lee fights a zombie and hides Babe's sexy body in a closet to keep her away from the muscular zombies. Now Lazy tries to walk away and even ignores Lee, who's struggling against the zombie. Regardless, Lee manages to push away the zombie, and he locks himself and Lazy inside the dispensary. There's no sight of Tarzan anywhere, and Lee suspects Lazy to be infected, but both men are safe. They try to come up with a plan, and then Lazy uses some black tape for protection, but it's only enough to cover one finger. They suddenly spot a zombie inside the room and are attacked. Lee uses a chair to combat the zombie, and then they tie up the zombie while also covering his face with a dustbin. Now, Lee asks Lazy for his phone, but he says that Lee had confiscated it from him earlier. The two take a look at the zombies outside, and Lee wants to save Babe, but Lazy doesn't want to act reckless. He flashes his light at the zombies, and it triggers them, so he puts the flashlight into the Tate zombie's mouth to distract the other zombies. Taking use of that, they come out and free Babe as well. The trio makes it out of the infirmary, but finds the entire army base overrun with zombies. They get into a truck, but Lazy spots a mark on Babe's arm and thinks she's been bitten. She says that's not the case, and also mentions finding her mom. Lazy tries to jump-start the truck, but it's of no use. Then a soldier asks the trio to let him inside. Lazy can't move out of fear, so the soldier gets killed by some zombies. After coming back to his senses, Lazy blows the truck's horns to distract the zombies. This allows the trio to make an escape. They hide in the grass after that, and notice some zombies still carrying out their regular patrolling activities. Lazy reasons this might be because of muscle memory, but then he makes some noise that alerts the zombies. One of the zombies comes close to Lazy, so he acts fast and pulls a rifle from underneath it. Lee ties up the zombie and tells Lazy to fire at it, but he's unable to do so. Lee takes over the gun, but accidentally misfires the shot, and it alerts the other zombies. The trio runs away from them and into the obstacle course. The zombies also start competing in the course because of muscle memory, and it allows the trio to gain an advantage. A hectic chase follows, and the trio makes it to the nurse, doctor, bully, and another survivor inside a hideout. Unfortunately, the survivor is bitten after the trio enters the hideout. Bully threatens the infected survivor and shoots him in the leg when he tries to run away. Doctor also spots the wound on Babe's arm and panics. Thinking that she will also transform into a sexy zombie, Bully points his gun at Babe as well. Zombies start piling on the gate, so Bully suggests locking up Babe and two others, but not Lazy. He plays along and allows the others to get locked up so that he can figure out a means of escape. Babe is kept with the infected survivor, while Lee and the nurse are put in the neighboring cage. Doctor and Bully figure that they must get into a car and get out of there, so Bully creates a distraction for the zombies outside. The infected survivor starts to transform in front of Babe, and things are about to get tricky, so Lazy holds Doctor hostage and demands for his car keys. The infected survivor turns into a lustful zombie and attacks the sexy Babe. However, he doesn't bite her. Instead, he charges at the nurse and Lee, possibly because they smell better. Bully throws the keys next to the gate and opens it. After that, he runs away with Doctor. Lazy is in a predicament, but he quickly takes the keys. He then locks himself inside the cage with Lee and the nurse. The zombies surround them, but the team is puzzled as to why Babe hasn't been bitten yet. Suddenly, the national anthem starts to play because it's flag lowering time, and all the zombies stand in attention due to muscle memory. The trio makes it out of the cages, and they spot a crashed car with the dead doctor and a rifle inside. Meanwhile, an injured Bully crawls away to safety, but Zombie Fatty attacks him because he's shown to be deaf and cannot hear the anthem. As the anthem stops playing, the zombies start to wake up. In the middle of this, Lazy spots Tarzan, who is also turned into a zombie. Bully struggles against Zombie Fatty, and even though he stabs him in the eye, Bully doesn't emerge victorious. Zombie Tarzan attacks Lazy, who doesn't move out of fear, but the nurse sacrifices herself to save his life. Lee gets the rifle, and then the team enters another hideout spot. However, the nurse is going to die, and Babe starts crying for her mom's death, while also cursing Lazy for being useless. Lee and Lazy get into an argument, but Babe scolds them both for being unable to kill a single zombie till now. The nurse passes away, making Babe emotional, but Lee takes her away because the nurse starts turning into a zombie. She awakens and is about to attack Babe, but Lazy shoots her in the head, sending her to meet Jesus. But the zombie army continues to take over the army base. It's nighttime, but the team sits down silently, without much to do in terms of a plan. Lazy blames himself for being a lazy fool and says he is the reason why Tarzan is a zombie. Lee also says that he's a useless commander who can't get anything done. Luckily, they plan to use the HQ room to broadcast the anthem and freeze the zombies. It seems to be an unlikely task, so they try to figure why Babe wasn't bitten by the zombies earlier. Lazy remembers he also wasn't bitten earlier at the infirmary, and that's when it finally strikes him that it's the mosquito repellent, which can repel zombies. So they search for more repellent, but it's out of stock. Lazy says the only other option is to rob their bodies against Babe, but she's already gone out of the hideout with a gun. She says that the men are useless, and she's going to do the broadcast herself, despite having a sweaty body that might neutralize the mosquito repellent. Luckily, she safely makes her way to the broadcast room. Lazy and Lee engage in a flashy montage, where they dress up in their battle suits. Babe starts the radio and plays the anthem, but accidentally starts a disco song. She eventually plays the right tune, and it freezes the zombies, so Lee and Lazy get to work. However, Bully shows up and attacks Babe because he wants to know why she's resistant to the zombies. A struggle ensues, and it leads to Babe bumping into the radio. The tune changes to a disco song, so Lee and Lazy are attacked by the zombies. Their black tape protects them from bites, and they survive long enough for Babe to turn the anthem back on. The tunes keep changing as the battle continues, so Lee and Lazy are put to the test. Suddenly, there's a radio broadcast talking about a chopper coming to rescue the survivors, so Bully tells them to come to the Blue Bridge Gate. He wants to take Babe along for her immunity, but she resists him, so he throws her onto the radio and breaks it. As a result, Lee and Lazy have to give their all against the zombies. They eventually manage to climb up a pole, but Lazy struggles to do so. One of the zombies starts pulling down the flag because of muscle memory, and this causes Lee to be dragged down below Lazy. The zombies get wild, so the pole crashes against the building. Lazy manages to hold onto the ledge, but Lee is still stuck near the zombies. Lee tells Lazy to do a chin-up and brings his mother into it for added drama. This motivates Lazy to do some exercise, and he even manages to save Lee after climbing the ledge. He also clarifies that his mother is dead, so Lee apologizes. The two reach the broadcast room and learn that Bully and Babe are going to the Blue Bridge. They rush to the scene while running away from zombies, and they lock the zombies behind the fence. They find Bully and Babe there, so they try to negotiate with Bully. However, Bully acts tough and pushes Babe against the fence, but the zombies don't bite her smelly muscles. Babe pulls a fast one on him, and it leads Bully to get bitten. Lee charges at Bully to stop him, but gets shot in the process. Lazy thinks fast and realizes that Bully doesn't have any bullets left. He also remembers that Bully has mosquito repellent on him, so he grabs it from his pocket. Luckily, Lee is shown to have survived the bullet thanks to his ID tag. However, Bully opens the lock to the fence and fights with Lazy, while Lee and Babe hold off the zombies. A brief struggle follows, but Lazy is able to overcome Bully, and then Lee adds the finishing touches by knocking him down with a kick. Now, Lee and Lazy apply the mosquito repellent on themselves and are able to secure themselves just before the zombies charge at them. The trio remains unharmed, but Bully is ripped to shreds. The chopper arrives with Lee's dad, and the team is finally rescued. Later, we see the team operating a rescue mission, where they have to fight some zombies and save some survivors. After a brief argument regarding Lee's grandmother, the movie ends with the soldiers charging at the zombies. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.